Good evening. Welcome to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight I have a guest, Sonya. So I was being a little nosy and sticking my nose in some Facebook groups, and I saw a very interesting post she had about some activities on her property. And I hit her up, and she said, "Hey, I like to talk." So I said, "She is definitely someone I like to have on the show." So Sonya, I'm gonna just give it over to you, Mama.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me here. I'm Sonya. Let's see, I'm from East Tennessee, and I've lived on a property out where I live all my life, and we have a family of Bigfoots that I live near. I keep saying that live near me, but I live near them because they've been out there way longer than I have. But yeah, and not only that, we actually have a lot of UFO activity. And I've actually had a visit from the Wampus Cat out there, which is, not a big thing that a lot of people know about. I didn't know about it until I saw it. Like I really, it's one of those things until you see it, you don't really know what you're dealing with. But because I have the family of Sasquatch out there, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared when I seen it, but like I guess I can get into it. Like with my Bigfoot, I'm nervous.
No, you're fine. But just so you know, I'm going to send you a song about Wampus cats.
Yeah, and there's like so many like with that though, like a lot of people are more curious about them than they are the family of Bigfoots, because Bigfoots, I guess, are more well known, and a lot of people have had sightings of Bigfoot, but not a lot of people have seen the Wampus Cat. And she's a beautiful creature. Like when you see her, like I don't know, I wasn't scared. I mean, I was surprised because I was with a friend and we were feeding my pigs in the middle of the night, and we kept like that whole week I'd been hearing noises. I'd been hearing like chattering and what sounded like little kids talking to each other. Like if you passed a playground in the park, it sounded like kids talking to each other like that. And then there would be like these whistles, and it wasn't just like a whistle, just little whistles here and there. It was like tunes, like somebody was whistling a tune, but it would be so long and drawn out that there would be no break in it. Like a person would have to take a break at some point. You're a world champion whistler out in the woods out here. But like, you were hearing all these things. And we went to feed my pigs one night. We'd been gone all day, and it was me and my friend Courtney. And it was like midnight, and it was December. Facebook let me know. I've been telling everybody it was like February or something, but it's actually in December because Facebook let me know on my memories what day it was not too long ago. I was like, oh, it's like 2 months off. I should probably start writing down my stories, right?
Yeah.
But like, we get out to the pig pen, and I've got like a bucket of slop, and I've got like a crappy flashlight, and she's got my good flashlight, and we're hearing these noises, and I kept going, do you hear that? And she was like, yeah, it sounds like kids. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I've been hearing that all week. And we were talking about it on the way to, feed the pigs. And I was like, it's just so weird. I don't know what that is. And I told her, a lot of people had already knew about the Bigfoot family that were there, because if you've ever stayed at my house any point in time, just for a little while, especially in the summertime, like we'll have activity. So anybody that's with me gets to have those experiences too. I've traumatized a couple of people by accident, but that's another story.
It's okay.
It's like I was in trouble. I'm like, look, and they're like, no. I'm like, I'm sorry. But like we get out to the pig pen, and I'm stirring the pig bucket, and we kept hearing. I had my dogs outside too, and that was another thing. Like my dogs were outside, and I don't worry about them much, but I worry about them some because I've got small dogs and a couple big dogs. But like, we get up to the pig pen, and I'm still hearing these noises, and it was just like, I'm like, what is that noise? And she was just like, we're chattering, everything was good, we're just talking, and all of a sudden she just turns her flashlight off and steps behind me. My friend does, Courtney. She steps behind me and doesn't say a word, and she just gets real quiet, and I'm just like, okay. And then all of a sudden she's like, hey, can we go in? And I was like, yeah, hang on, I'm almost done. And she was like, yeah, can we go in now? I need to sit down. And I was like, what's wrong? She's like, nothing. I just want to go in and sit down. And I was just like, it was just like that. She just flipped a switch, like something was wrong. And I was like, are you okay? What? I was like, do you hear that noise? And she was like, yeah, I hear it. And I was like, let me see your flashlight. And she just chucks the flashlight at me. And the weird thing about that is like, I told her too, like, if you're ever out in the woods and you're trying to hide, you don't ever turn your flashlight on because everything will know where you are when you turn your flashlight on. And that's something I told her like months before this, and so she turned her flashlight out and got behind me and didn't do anything, and she just wanted to go inside. She just wanted to go inside and sit down. And I was just like, yeah. And I was like, do you hear that? Let me see your flashlight. And she chucked the flashlight at me, and I turned the flashlight on and turned around, and the Wampus Cat, she was sitting on her butt behind my pig pen. My pig pen is on a slope. It's on like a hill. And she's sitting up on the bank behind the pig pen. She's sitting on her butt, and she's got her legs straight out and her hands like this, just sitting there. And I was like, what the F is that? And that's what I screamed out. And I was like, because I was mesmerized. Like, I'd seen Bigfoot. Like, I've seen some things, but I'd never seen this. And she was very cat-like. You could tell she had big green eyes. She had a very cat-like face, almost like a lion, but kind of like the Egyptian cats. I don't know how to explain it. They're almost like dog-like, but they're very much like a cat. And she had like longish brown hair. She had like her skin was like really fine. Like she had fur, but it was really fine, and it was like a grayish brown color, like speckled. And she had 2 breasts and 2 legs, and it went down into like just, it was very feminine. She was very, I keep calling her a she because she had 2 breasts, and she looked very feminine. Like, I think it was a she. Like, in my mind, I can't call her anything but a she. And and her legs went into 2 legs, and like, because I've been finding weird tracks, and I've got a picture of one of them. I'd been finding weird tracks I thought were double bear tracks but then I thought they were Bigfoot tracks because it had an ankle. And I was so confused by these. I was like, this is maybe a juvenile Bigfoot, and it's just its feet are weird, or like something's wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, and I kept finding these prints, and I've got that picture of that one, and because she went into like a human-like ankle and then into like a cat paw in her feet, because she had her feet sticking straight out in front of her. I got like a really good like view of her just sitting there. And my dogs were out there running around her. They weren't bothered by her at all. She wasn't bothered by them. I just sat there with the flashlight on her and stood there. And I turned to my friend and I was like, do you see that? And she was like, yeah, I see it. And she was like, it's been standing there for about 10 minutes. And I was like, what? Excuse me? I'm like, hold on, Wampus Cat. I got to deal with my friend over here. You're telling me there was something in the woods that whole time and you didn't say a word? She just shut down. She just thought she was seeing stuff. She, honest to God, thought she was seeing things. And she didn't say a word to me. And I was so upset for a second. I was like, you're not going to tell me that there was this thing standing? You knew it was there and you didn't say something to me? Like, I showed you Bigfoot, and you're gonna let this like.
He got behind you too, Sonya.
Yes. Courtney, and turned the flashlight out because I told her that's what you do to hide.
Courtney, where are you? Are you back there? We need to talk to you, Courtney.
She's one of the only people who's ever took my advice on anything, and it was like the only time somebody hadn't.
At the wrong time, didn't she?
And yeah, but like, I wasn't scared. I wasn't like, I mean, she wanted to go back in the house. There's no way you're getting me back in the house now, because I'm not. And for a split second, I was a little bit frightened, just because I guess it's the surprise of it, like the fear of not knowing. Because and in my little world here, I don't watch a lot of the cryptid shows, and the reason why is because I see a lot of stuff, and I don't want my thoughts to like be biased somehow or like be construed. Right. When I see stuff, like, I want to be able to have that experience myself and be able to like say, hey, this is what I was experiencing and this is what happened, instead of like accidentally portraying somebody else's thoughts or emotions into something when I see it. And I know that's awful, but like, so it's just like I just never heard of the Wampus Cat, and I figured out what it was, because there's a lot of like speculation in it having like 4 legs, a lot of speculation in it to being mountain lions or black panthers or bobcats, and this thing is not any of those things. This is it's definitely a 2-legged creature. But
how big was it?
She was probably about a little under 6 foot. I mean, as big as her footprint is, and as tall as like she was, like as because went back to like to where she was sitting, and for her to have looked like she did, my friend who helped me. It was hard to get anybody to go back out there with me. But my friend that went out there to help me, she was about 5'9", and the way she was sitting, she would have just been just a little bit taller than her, just about that much. She was about 6 foot or a little under. And um I mean, she sat there for a few minutes. My dogs ran around her. They didn't have a problem with her. Like my one dog was sitting beside her, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I think that was the one time I was scared that she was going to do something to the dog. And I was like, why? They've been out here every night with this thing. Why would she do something to my dogs? And I was just having all these like thoughts and emotions. And I stood there, and it sat there for like 10 minutes, another 10 minutes. And she got up on two legs and walked off into the woods. And
So, so let's look at your dogs for a minute. They knew the Wampus Cat was there longer than you did, far before you did, because there's a comfort there between them.
there is, and the one dog that was sitting beside her, she was like she was petting my dog. Like when she stayed for a few months, like off and on, and sometimes I still hear her. I haven't seen her since that weekend, because like a couple nights later, it took me like 2 nights to even get on Google, because we went right home. My friend wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't tell me what she saw. She was just shut down, traumatized, and I couldn't get her to talk to me. So I was like, listen, I need you to confirm what's happening here, because I need confirmation to not be so upset. Like,
That matters.
I was excited. I was so excited, because I was like, what? And so we went home and we called my mom, and my mom is, my mom is, she's scared of, I won't say she's scared of the dark. She's scared of what's in the dark. She will not walk out if the street light isn't hitting the outside. My mom won't walk out there where we live. She just won't. And
There's a reason for that.
she has her reasons, and I know. And she would prefer to, she knows things are there. She prefers not to think that they're there, so she has a better and easier time to be getting in and out of the truck when she comes home at night. My sister lives next door. We live on the same piece of property, and so she walks back and forth. She wants that, be able to not stroke out between houses when she's outside at night, and I understand that. But we called my mom, and I was like, listen, she's like, well, separate. She's like, you go in there and you tell me what you saw, and then I'll talk to her and she can tell me what she saw. And I was like, yeah, okay, because I need her to tell me. And so I told my mom what I'd seen, and she was like, yeah. And she talked to Courtney, and Courtney told her the same thing. And my mom was like, that's, she's like, just stay in the house. Just stay in the house. I was like, stay in the house? I'm going to go back outside and find it. Like, I was like, it didn't attack us. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel like she knew she'd been there the whole time, and she'd wanted me at any point in time. I feed my pigs every day. Anything could get me, and if it wanted to get me, could have already in that. So I don't have a fear. And you can imagine how these beings feel every time somebody sees one of them, to have that fear come over him, like like Frankenstein's monster.
That's how my that's how my husband feels when I wake up in the morning. I have, he looks at me like, what the hell, woman?
He's holding a pitchfork. And he shows up. He's like, you gotta have your coffee.
So, have any of your pigs ever got missing?
No, no. I mean, none of the livestock has ever been messed with by any of those things, except for I had chickens. I have a rogue male Bigfoot who comes in through like February, March. He just comes through. He's not a part of my clan. He's always by himself when he comes through. You can tell he smells different. Like, I never smell my clan. A lot of people say that the Bigfoot smell. I never smell mine, but you can smell him. You can smell him through the holler. He smells like skunk and burnt coffee. And it's just overpowering. Like, and it's him. And it only comes through that one time. And that one time a year. And he comes through every year. And a chicken tractor that you drag along through the yard, and my sister's boyfriend come up to me and he was like, "Hey, something tried to get in your chicken coop last night." And I was like, "That's weird." And I go up there and something had ripped the top of the cage off. And this is like a heavy enough door where it keeps raccoons out. This is, that's what it's for. That's the way it's made, So whatever ripped the door off of it like it did had to have, I mean, basically, I had to be something big the way it ripped it off, because it ripped it clean straight up and off. Because I could just lay it back down and hammer it back in. And I was just like, well,
Wow.
that was, yeah. And I was like, okay, so something tried to get my chickens. And I was like, all right. And I was like, I had a feeling I knew what it was. And my friend, that same friend, this is how she got to see Bigfoot. And this was before the Wampus Cat showed up. I was like, I got him. I was like, yeah, I said, I'm going to get him tonight. So I made sure I took my chicken tractor and I put it right on the outside of where, like, I have a floodlight. If I step out my back door, I can step out my back door. The floodlight will come on immediately. And I was like, I'll get him tonight. So I put the chicken tractor right there at the edge of the woods. And, my poor chickens, I know, basically baited him in. But I knew he would come back, And that night, I could hear, like, what was it? I don't remember if it was my sister's dogs barking or if it was the chickens making noises, but I was like, I just knew in my head. I was like, that, like, it's time. And I stepped out the back door. We both did. And as soon as I stepped out the back door, my friend Courtney goes, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yep." And it was him. It was the big, he's almost the color of a cedar tree. And there's like a row of cedars that go in back into the woods, and he just slowly took like 2-3 steps back and into that tree and disappeared. And it made me realize at that moment the way that a lot of them, if they don't cloak themselves, the way they use camouflage, they use your own eyesight against you, because the way your depth perception works, the way he stepped into that tree and disappeared, it looked like he became part of the tree, but he was still standing there. I could still see him, but like it was weird. And it was like his own camo, but like, yeah. And I knew it was him. And he's the only one that's ever messed with any of the livestock. Now, I've had my clan get into my garden, the juveniles. And that big male, he also ate my whole winter crop of the first time I grew both Brussels sprouts and broccoli, what winter stuff. He ate everything in my garden, every bit of it. So, and then he tried to eat my chickens.
When you say rogue, do you think he was kicked out the clan, or what do you think happens when they become rogue? What do you think their other selves? Hey,
yeah. I'm glad he came through. He was like, "You're crawling on the floor." I forgot my bag before we sat down.
You're fine. We're friends.
When I say rogue, I just know he's not part of the clans that are there. Whether he's got his own clan somewhere else or if he just travels, I'm not sure his story. He doesn't stick around long enough for me to really have it. Well, I had interaction with him after that, after he tried to steal my chickens and he ate everything in my garden. I was pretty mad. So I went out in the woods, and I know people think you're crazy when you go out in the woods and you talk to them, but you can go out and tell them you're like, hey, this isn't cool. Like, if I knew you were coming through, I would have left you snacks at the gifting spot. We have a gifting spot here. And I do now. But like, so in the wintertime, like, I make sure that I put out stuff at the gifting spot more often than usual, just in case he comes through, because I do feel like he will stay out of my stuff if I give him stuff too,
So before I interrupted you, you said this was the night that Courtney seen the road Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's the first time she got to see Bigfoot. And what was cool was because she saw him first before I did, because when we both stepped out, like, I had my gun on my shoulder. So when I stepped out, I just grabbed it, it was like doing this like swing motion because I thought I was cool. And she saw him first and she was like, did you see that? And as soon as I looked up, he was just like stepping into the trees. And I was like, ooh. And I was like, yeah, tell me what you saw. And she described to me that time, because everybody told her Bigfoot was real. And she was just like, she always thought Bigfoot was real. And this was a couple weeks before the Wampus Cat showed up. Or maybe it was after. year before.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it had to be
Okay.
before because, or I don't know, because she could have just seen my clan because she was there that summer. And my clan of Bigfoots, they kind of like during the winter months, they're not around as much. Like they're just like between the end of November and the middle of March, they're just in and out. Like I don't leave a lot of gifts in the wintertime. I don't see them a lot. It rains a lot out through here, so they're not out, and about much. Um, but I know, like, get my dates mixed up. It might even
It's
have been.
okay. It's okay. I'm bad with numbers and I'm bad with dates. That drives my
Yeah.
husband nuts.
My
But
years run together because I spent so my dad died in 2018, and I spent 4 years like at my house reclused in. So I spent a lot of time out in the woods and a lot of time out there, and like the years run together. And that's why a lot of people tell me I need to like start writing stuff down. And Facebook memories is a big help. Is a
mhm.
huge help with dates because like those 4 years really run together, and it was really hard because we had a lot of weird stuff happen to us. And even before that, I knew the clan of Bigfoots had been out there since I was little. When I was like 7 or 8 was the first time I'd ever seen an actual Bigfoot. And I went and told my parents. Me and my sister both saw it, and it was down by the creek, and he was watching us play in the creek. And when we went and told my mom was like, "No, that's your imagination. That's what imagination is. That's just you making stuff up in your head." I was like, "Me and Sonny both making stuff up." Okay, so in my mind, my little bitty mind, I thought imagination was like when people see stuff together. If you imagine stuff together, like I don't know, like I had a really weird interpretation of what even imagination was, because I was like, I knew I saw something, but maybe we didn't. Maybe we just that's what kids do. They make stuff up in their heads and they see it together. You know what I mean? And I was like, I try to justify my mom telling me it was my imagination. But then when I was 12, um, I'd come back home from a softball game in the summertime. And my dad had bought a cherry pie and he'd left it in the truck, and he was like, "Go back outside and get that cherry pie." And I was like, "Okay." And I stepped outside on the porch, and I had 2 dogs. And these 2 dogs were like any other dogs I'd ever had. They were mean. They were so mean. Nothing messed with them, nothing. And something was bothering them. They were both laying on the porch whining like something had happened to them. And I was just like, that's weird. What's wrong, And as soon as I stepped on the porch, something screamed. And it was just like this scream. And I've only heard a couple of Bigfoot recordings now that I can relate this scream to, because it sounded like almost like a holler monkey and a dying jackrabbit mixed together. And that's the only way to describe it. And it was like, it sounded like it was just like right outside the porch, and I froze. I couldn't even take another step. And thank God it was so loud that my dad heard it, because my dad came back out, and I was just frozen in fear because I couldn't move. I couldn't do nothing. And he was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Oh, thank God." Like immediately, just run up the porch and stood beside him and was like shaking. I was like, "I don't know." And it kept screaming. And me and my dad, he was like, let's go see what that is. And he had just gotten one of them giant handheld spotlights, they just come out, but they were like really giant back then. they were
I
huge.
remember those.
Yeah, and we've come a long way in flashlights. I can tell you that much. It's gay technology. But we took it up to the edge of the woods, and we shined it through the woods, and this thing was still screaming, and it sounded like it was right in front of us, but you couldn't see it. There was nothing there, but you could still, it was still screaming. And Dad turned the flash. He was like, "Let's turn the light out." And I was just like, "No, let's not." And he was like, so we turned the light out. And when we turned it out, you could hear the thing walking away on 2 feet, just like steps. And my dad, my dad always knew. He was always in the woods, and he was always curious about Bigfoot. He always knew something was there. And that thing stayed all, that particular one stayed all summer. I don't know if it was part of my clan, because I was too young to know who was who, in the group now. So I don't know if it was just part of the clan, they were out there, or what was going on. But my sister makes a lot of animal noises. She's even been on Jay Leno from her animal impressions. But
Get out of here.
Yes, she does. And she does this scream. She calls it a Bigfoot howl, because she used to do it outside at night and they would answer her back. Her kids do it outside at night. Her daughter does. Her son did it and it answered him back, and now he's so scared he won't come outside very often.
Oh,
Yeah, unless people are with him, and we tell him what it is. Like, he knows. It's just, I think his sister freaks him out about it, like teases him. So, and, my sister's always out there making those noises. So, I think Brady's going to get snatched. But she would stand outside and holler like that because we'd play outside in the summer. So she would make those noises. And I think that it came thinking she was in distress or something, or like, I don't know. Like, I wish I would have known what I know now, then, because I would instead of being just so scared, because it was summertime and at nighttime it would stand outside the house and scream. The dogs wouldn't go after it, and it would just sound like it was right outside your window. And we didn't like turn the air conditioner on back then at night. We just opened up the windows. So you can imagine just being just hot and under a blanket and just in fear, because we never could see it. And if I'd have known it was still the same thing that was beside the creek watching me as a kid, it probably wouldn't have scared me so much, because I knew then when I was little that those things weren't going to hurt me. I knew that they were there and they weren't going to hurt me. I just knew that they were there. And if they wanted to hurt me, they could have already dragged me into the woods at any point in time.
So let's just go ahead and you grew up there. The sounds of the forest, the sounds of in the mountain or up the mountains. Your sounds.
Yeah.
And it's very reasonable to say your animals. When you first started, I'm going to say you have a bond with them. They're not eating your chickens and your dogs are still alive. They must like you, But I'm just going to say you've created a bond over years. Basically, I'm hearing they watched you grow up. And so when did they first show themselves to you?
Well, I've seen them off and on, like ever since my imagination. I've seen them off and on, but only in the last 6 years have I sat in the woods with them and had the whole clan come out and knew that there were because I knew there were multiple ones in the last few years. Like in the last 10 years, I knew there were more than one, just because there was a difference in size of the two I seen and their eye shine. And that's something that that I've known about their eye shine since I was younger, because we would see we would see it, and nothing else in the world has just self-illuminating eyes like that, and nothing that we claim to know that just self-illuminate like that. And they would be different colors, and I would always know who was who from the different colors. And there was 3 of them, and it would be white and oranges, yellow, and green. And my watcher has green eyes, and I know she's the one that I always would see. She sits in the woods and watches every day. She's just like in the summertime, she's one of them every day. You can see where she sits because there's a pile of sticks and bark, where she'll just sit there and peel bark into little piles. And then there's piles all over the woods like that. And I should take some pictures of it, because you can just tell it's just she is sitting there twiddling, just
like we would be knitting.
Something. Yeah, you're just bored watching, ain't got nothing else to do.
So these piles,
yeah,
these piles of the bark. So there's other people out there that could be looking at this and not realizing that it's just maybe from a Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Well, that's the thing about it. A lot of people wouldn't even know certain things to look for. There are certain tree bends and tree markers that they do. A lot of people just account for fallen trees, or it just nature's way or whatever. And you if you didn't know what you were looking for, you wouldn't even know that that's what that was. A lot of their territory markers or their friendly markers, my clan really likes the Y-shaped markers. And I've been talking to some Bigfoot people that they were they were telling me that it was a friendly marker, a friendly meaning. The Y-shaped sticks were like if you find those around your place, that means that they find you friendly and that they think of you as a friend. And I was like, well, I already knew that. And I was like, but I guess maybe it's a marker for other ones to let other things know that I'm friendly too. But they're just like certain sticks in the way they put them up, and you'll know that the area is an area that they've been in just by just seeing those. So you start seeing those, you could follow them, and you'll end up in places where you know they've been. Like you can find feet prints, and it's like, and I know where they live, and I know like I would never take anybody there up there, but like I know exactly how to track them now because of the time that I've spent in the woods with them. I know exactly, like because I know where they sit at night. You can go and where some of them where they stand and how they travel through the woods a lot. You can go in places where they are and stand in that spot and look, and you can see directly from that one spot to the next spot, and so forth and so on. And that's how I learned how to track, like to track where they were going, or where a lot of their places are. And that's how I picked our gifting spot too. I picked it because it was in that area, and it's right there, and it's worked ever since. We went back.
So, yeah. Oh no, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were.
I was just going to say we've gifted things back and forth to each other over the years now. At that spot, and it's a lot of that. It's just like things come to me, and I don't know. If they're telling me, or if I'm just figuring it out on my own, or if they're just helping me, along. Because you get a lot of connections. You connect it like you connect with the land out there. The land is its own entity. I don't know how to explain it, but the
energy.
The energy that carries out there. And I have a creek in front of my house, so I have where water meets, and I also have a lot of springs. It's a spring fed creek, so I've got all these places where these springs are coming out of the ground, and they're really like things are really attracted to where the springs are. And it's not just the Bigfoots, but we see a lot of like the orbs, and there's other things out there. Like I don't know how. Like the only thing I think that I don't have a good grasp on is these tiny like shadow people. Like I don't know. There's just these like tiny little shadow figures that I've seen in the woods. And most of the time when I've seen them, they've been above water or above one of the springs or above the creek. And that's every time I've seen them, they've been there. And I never got like a bad feeling from them. Maybe just the fear of I don't know what that is. But I also get that feeling like I don't want to mess with it. Like I don't want to know what it is, because maybe I don't know.
So when you say shadow people, is this something that just started happening, or has this always been on your property, or is it around when the Bigfoot are around, or?
It's something that, well, I don't know. It's just something that's always been there. And I wasn't like the first person to see them. I've seen them before and just didn't know other people, but my neighbors had seen them. And we were just talking about things that we'd seen out here before. And that's one of the things that got brought up. And he was just like, oh, well, I saw something one night I couldn't explain. And he was like, and he started describing the same thing that I saw. And I was like, was it near the creek? And he just looked at me, and I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah. And so my neighbor had seen the same thing. And so that's like, and neither of us really, never heard anything about it. And there was like, and then I was talking to my mom about it. My mom was like, your dad said he saw that before. And he said, it's the same thing down by the creek. It was always above the water. It was down next to the spring or whatever. And that's my neighbor. It's the same creek, he just lives like less than a mile up the road from me. So it's the same creek. And we all pretty much described what we'd seen was the same thing. My mom said Dad had seen it, but like, I don't know if I'd ever heard my dad tell that story or not. And I can't remember. So, but my mom said my dad had seen something like that when they had first moved in, and he didn't know what it was. He wasn't scared of much, but like, he just that's the only thing I don't like have a real good concept of what it was. Cause it's really hard to tell what you're seeing. And I, you can't just, it's really hard, especially if you don't have anybody there with you going, do you see that? Or if you do, they could just be behind you hiding. It really don't matter.
So Do you know the history of your land? Sounds to me, because I know land is everything has an energy. So, is the history of the land something that you know, or
Well, I know the holler. I don't know the exact history like any further back than like those settlers that were there. You know what I mean? It's not really a place where good records are kept. But where I live now is they raised a lot of pig farms. Um, so there was a lot of pig farms up and down the valley where I live, and um, which I guess that's why it was so easy to make, you know, get my own pigs because they were already set up for it. Like, uh, my
so? I'll ask you a question. I've never found anyone in the Bigfoot world that could ever answer this. On the day my friend and I, Richard, had the best experience and activity we had to leave the woods and take a break because how it, it was just back to back to back. When we come back, there was this really large, there was pine straw on the ground, and something made a huge U in the entry, and we just walked through there. They weren't there, and it looked like it had just been fluffed up in the pine straw with a huge U in it, and it had two saplings that were woven together across it. Have you ever seen that?
Now I have found spots similar to that. Yeah. Like a huge waller spot where something is set in it. And you know what's weird? On top of my hill, they like I found spots like that, but there's like this open spot that's like that, and there's these like where there's these trees that are arched together, but you can tell something has arched them together like that, and now they're growing together like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So and there's a big, it's just this big open spot in the middle of the woods. It literally is just like a round circle in the middle of the woods.
So
So
now the orbs. Uh, I've seen one, but I'm still trying to debunk it because I will debunk something before I support it. It just drives people nuts. But what is your take on the orbs? Are they always like you see an orb and then are they certain time of the year, or are they when the Sasquatch are around, or they when the road set? Did they come up with the Wampus Cat? Are they
you know,
pig parts? I don't. I mean, I don't know. You know.
I mean, it's got to be, like centuries been talking about wisp. What's the difference
Mhm.
between a wisp and an orb? Probably not much. It's just probably just carried energy in the woods. And I mean, the trees they carry so much energy. Of course, things can go in between them, So there's all kinds of energy that's gonna carry between the trees. So I've never related the orbs and Bigfoot.
Mhm.
Sometimes I don't know if people are seeing orbs or if they're seeing eye shine, but
Yeah.
I've never had like an orb experience and then a Bigfoot experience. You know what I mean? Like not at the same time. Um, and honestly, I didn't even see the orbs. The one orb that I saw was in the sky, and it was in like a thunderstorm, and it was giant and orange. And the other two that I've seen like two or three, were like blue or green, and they went through the woods so fast. Like I don't, there's no telling what it was. You know,
But you saw a UFO or something.
yeah, and those are definitely in the sky though. And
Yeah.
the like when I was younger, me and my sister thinks we got abducted by aliens, but I mean, I don't know because we were outside. We had a swimming pool, and we were outside in our swimming pool, and a flying saucer came over us. I remember the flying saucer. Like I got a tattoo of it and everything, just because it was like, hold on. I was like, "Where's the
Yeah,
camera?"
yeah. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
like just because it was one of those like things, and like like I always remember like it coming down over us, but then like I don't remember. My sister years just in the last few years was talking to me about it, and she's like, "You don't remember?" And I was like, she was like, it was like daylight, and she's like, and then it was just dark, and we were both just standing there, and I was like, that's exactly how I remember it too. And we freaked out, and I told my dad, And I remember my dad just being like, "Oh, you guys are, and Sonny just not saying nothing." And when he asked her about it, she wouldn't say anything, and he thought that was weird, And then I guess he thought I was lying, but she said she didn't say anything because she didn't want him to think that we were lying and her get in trouble. And I was like, and then she would have been the ringleader in it, I was like, so you just let me stand there and look like I was lying? She was like, yeah. But she's like, but we don't remember anything. And I was like, I remember seeing the UFO. I was like, I remember seeing the flying saucer. I've seen lots of lights in the sky since, but this one was different. It actually and it looked just like like a flying saucer would look. And that's what was so wild about it. The other things that I've seen since then, the lights in the sky, like I know when they're there. Like my friends will tell you, like we can be anywhere and I can just be like, come outside with me or like look up and I can see them, and and people want to relate a lot of the UFOs and the Bigfoots, you know. But if you're in the woods far enough where the Bigfoots are, the sky's probably going to be pretty clear and you're going to see some stuff. I mean, and then
Yeah.
you're in the forest, it's got so much energy. Those are high vibrational. The mountains are high vibrational, like where the trees are, the woods, all that stuff. Those are those are I'm a firm believer in portals too. I just throw that out there. I believe that you know with the right frequency and the right vibration, I mean, you should be able to portal anywhere you want.
Well, this is what I think. I think that you know, you have experienced a lot. You can I think maybe the difference between you and other people, to me, when you seem to have an open mind and you're non-judgmental and you're accept that you don't know everything in the world, is those people to me seem to have the most experiences. But it takes a lot of courage to say, hey, you believe in orbs, I've seen orbs, UFOs. you know no one is in your shoes. So if someone calls you crazy, they weren't there with you, they're not seeing what. And just like they have a right to say, I don't believe you, you have a right and say, you know what, you weren't there, it's my story. And girl, respect for you for that. Because so many people keep their mouth shut and
Well,
they just kind of, good for you,
well,
Sonya.
there's these like that's the thing. Like, and I have friends because they'll be like, this has never happened to me until I started hanging out with you. Things will happen, and they're just like, it's weird, especially like if with the Bigfoots that like all my really close friends who know me, like they all buy me Bigfoot stuff all the time, but they've been to my house, they know. Um, and I think almost about like 9 out of the 10 times that I've had experiences, I've had people with me. There's been like there's been a few things like I had a friend when I saw the Wampus Cat, like, and I've traumatized these poor people. Like I know I traumatized her. She don't even come to my house anymore. Like, she didn't really even want to go outside and help me feed the pigs anymore after that. It was really hard for her to like function after that. And I think at first I thought it was funny, but now that I've really sat down and experienced things with people, like I feel really bad about like that happening to them, because I know things happen to me and I'm not even like, I don't know, you know, like, and not that I'm not surprised. I'm just like, oh, okay, this is a new thing. We're going to deal with this now. Okay. But like with other people, they've never dealt with like something like this on that scale. So they're completely traumatized. And I have to like remember that not everybody thinks the way I think. Not everybody, can handle certain stuff. And I think that's part of it, that these things are revealing themselves to me because they know I can handle it. And so once you know that these things are there, that's part of it too. I think you really have to believe that some of these things are there for them to even reveal themselves to you. Like you have to know that they're there. You have to know what you're even looking for, you know?
So to me, it seems like they have been familiar with you your whole life. And because of activity at such a young age, I'm a firm believer that they know good people and they know bad people, just like we read energy.
They know your intentions the moment you step onto the land. They know as soon as you're in eye contact with their, like, as soon as they can see you, they know exactly what's in your heart. They know what's in your head. They know. And that's why, and again, I think that's why a lot of the time, like when people have bad experiences with them, is like, you can imagine just being, could you imagine just being yourself and you ran into somebody and they were immediately scared of you because of the way you looked? That puts off energy that is, a defense. It's defensive, And if they know these people are like fierce, because what do people do when they fear stuff? They immediately think, I'm going to have to kill this thing. The people, they will kill what they fear. And, you get those, you get that energy in you, and how is it supposed to not want to scare you away? Because it knows if you have the chance, you will kill it, or you will try to hurt it, or whatever. So they can feel that,
I imagine you're very protective over your home and what's out there.
Yeah. Like I've had a lot of people that keep trying to be like, oh, we should come up and do a thing and do this. Unless you're my friend, I like to get to know people first, because I feel like if the Bigfoots trust me enough for them to let me see them and be like out there with them, then they should. I mean, I know people. I can read people. I read cards. I read people. I can hear people in their head, and I can hear things like that the same way. I can hear them the same way. Like, I can go outside. Last summer, I'd never hunted mushrooms before. I was so excited. I was like, oh, it's morel season. Let's go. I love mushrooms. Let's go. I don't know why I've never hunted mushrooms. I got like 58 acres. I can just be hunting mushrooms all summer long. I don't know why. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. I was like, I'll go by the creek first, because it's like, you get a lot of rain and stuff, and a lot of stuff gets washed up in the creek. And I always take like a bucket with me, and I'll go down the creek and I collect glass out of the creek, because I find a lot of old, cool, antique glass. I find all kinds of cool stuff in certain spots. And I was collecting garbage, and I got down and I got that, hey, Sonya, just that little voice in my head. It was like, hey, Sonya, go over here, and just this random spot, walk over here and just look behind that tree. And I did, and I looked over, and there was just this whole ring of morel mushrooms, and I could just hear it. And in my days, I'm not sure if it's my, I want to like feel like I'm connected with the land and I'm connected with the universe. But I all this time, I thought maybe the land was telling me the things, or the universe. But maybe it was them. Maybe it's them telling me, because I've been in the woods and had that same thing. It was like, hey, come over here, look. And I go over to a rock and I make bone jewelry and stuff, and I'll find bones. There'll be like a little pile of bones just sitting there, just strange stuff like that. And I always get that call, to go and find it. And I can always it leads me right to it. So I don't know if it's them or if it's the universe, or it's both. I don't know. It could be both. It's just the energy.
I think you have what my people call an old soul. Where you haven't been contaminated by the world, and you have an old soul. And that's a compliment. That's something that's good, solid in a person. What has been the most peculiar behavior that you can associate with the Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Like peculiar how? Like what's something strange that they do?
Something you never hear people say about it, but they have this behavior. And that's just not your typical something you see every day in the groups or the shows that.
I don't know, because I think now that I've been out there kind of telling my story, I've heard a lot of people have similar experiences. I'm trying to think of I don't know what.
But that's okay, because my show's always open to you for you to come back on for follow-ups.
Oh, you're like, I don't know. I'm like, oh.
Sure, okay. I'll toss you an easy one out there. Bad Vicky.
Thank you. I'm over here like, oh God, what?
Tag on Miss V. Stop. What's been the most gesture they have made toward you that will always stay with you?
So a couple years ago, like when I'd been out, I'd been out in the woods. I'm out in the woods all the time anyway, but I'd been out in the woods like more than usual, and I'd been starting to connect with them. And I went out and I took a bunch of stuff to our gifting spot, and I was upset that day, and I don't even remember why I was upset. But I was sitting there on the rock, and I was just upset, and I saw like the one that runs the clan is an old female. She's like the old mother. That's what I call her, old mother. And I saw her eye shine, and I knew she was there, and I was just like, I'm over here crying, and I'm having like this, I shouldn't have these. And in my mind, I was thinking I shouldn't be feeling like this in the woods around them, because I'm just bringing bad energy into the woods. So I was feeling guilty, and then I was just more upset about that. And it was just like, all of a sudden, like they were all around me, the whole family. Like she brought like everybody like around me, and it was the one time that I've ever had all of them surround me like that. Like I had the whole family surround me, and I couldn't stop crying. And I think about it right now and start crying, because it was just so like it was just so emotional. I don't know. It was just like they were all there, and I knew they were there, and I think I'd been fighting maybe with my mom or something, or maybe my I don't know. Like I just know I was upset in the woods, and things just weren't going the way I needed them to. And it was just that reassurance that it's okay, because it wasn't, your story is not that story. This is your story. Your story's different. And it was just like this really comforting, like your life is your life, and this is your life. This is part of your life. Being out here, being amongst the stars, being in the woods, being with the trees. That's part of
what I think. You know what I think, Sonya? I
Yep.
think when you were out there, you had your heart on your shoulders, and they formed, a circle around you. I think they were protecting you and letting you feel what you needed to feel. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but I think they were giving back to you
Oh
by
yeah.
protecting.
And I think even like I think they protected me all my life, and me not know it, because like everybody's asked me if I've ever touched one of them. Now I never, not on purpose. Now I had hunters on my property a couple years ago. This is like last year. There was hunters on my property, and of course, me and my sister's boyfriend, we went out in the woods, because he came and got me, and he's like, "We come with me," and I was like, "Yeah." So we were out in the woods, and I get to the top of the hill first, and we're not using flashlights. We don't use our flashlights again. We're just, roaming through the woods in the dark. And I get going down through this one hill, because they're coming up over the hill, and we're just trying to see if they were on our property or not, because we had a lot of people on our property hunting. And I went down over this hill, and I ran right into like the big male, like the big I want to go he's the big male. He's the male of like his clan, of my clan. But I ran right into him. And as soon as I ran into him, I thought, oh my God, I've run into a bear. I've run right into a bear. That was my first thought. And I don't know why that was my first thought, but I just froze and was like, oh my God. Cause my sister's dog was right behind me, and she came running up, and she made she makes this weird sound, this like grunt noise when she knows it's them. She doesn't bark at the Sasquatches. She knows it's them. So she makes this like, oh, and just walks off. And she made that noise. And as soon as she made that noise, I was like, oh, thank God. And I was like, I knew it was him. And I just, and he was walking off from me, and he grunted. And I was like, okay, it was him. And in my mind, I was like, I'm going to start having to use a flashlight or something. I was like, I run right into it. But he actually stopped me from going too far down, because if I went any further down, I would have run right out in front of the people that were, with their dogs on our, they were beside our property at the time. We're just making sure. They hadn't come over the hill yet, so I wasn't going to know if they were on our property or not. Had I went on down, I would have stopped them from, they would have saw me if I went on down. And I was like, oh, I think he got, like in my mind, when I thought back at it, I was like, I think he stopped me from going on down and like ruining it. He's like, hey, calm down. I was like, but I did. It was
what do you think they do when hunting season comes? What do you think? I mean, because to me, I would be on the defense.
They put out the family, I think, puts out the watchers. Like, again, they put 2 or 3 people out to watch, and they move in groups just like that, back and forth. they don't move unless they have eyes. And again, I do believe they can cloak. Like I've had some instances again where they just disappeared, and you're just like, okay, but you can still hear them, but you can't see them. And I don't know if it's them being able to use your own death perception and stuff, against you, or if it's them actually cloaking and disappearing, because the human eyesight's really crazy the way we have to, like, everything we take in, we have to invert it, and then we have to fill in our brain fills in the rest. Who's to say they're not using that against us? Not against us, but using
Well,
it.
that's actually a good theory. It really is. I do believe in portals. To go back to that for a minute, because my husband and I, the little kind of group we're in, got some pretty credible people with incredible. You're talking about people that are about to become doctors. You got nuclear engineers, but that doesn't mean anything. That just means their thought process and being open. I mean, just little old me, I don't have an education. Okay, I mean, I have a GED, and I was lucky to land a job that I did to support myself. But they have been to portals, and they had to sign paperwork not to disclose it, but they've actually experienced it. Do you think one's on your land, or?
Yeah, I do. I think I've told people this before too, and I really, it's, you got to be careful what you say, but I think there is a portal out there, and I'm not even sure that the mountains don't create their own portals in certain ways, or if there's, like, the way the energy carries in certain spots. You know what I mean? That it's not. That's why they dwell in certain areas, because of how easy it is to use the energy around them. And I tell people, like, if we would have stayed in the woods and living among nature and stuff, we would probably be able to use the energy in the woods. But we've gone, also we're all socialized now, and what's it called? Domesticated.
Domesticated. I have never met a woman that lives in the mountains and can run the hollers that's domesticated.
Yeah. I don't even know the word for it. Like, I was like, what's that called when you're like society and stuff?
I just think you got a free blood that goes in your veins.
Yeah, and it's like I think humans would be able to use that energy too, had we still been living with nature. We'd still been living one with nature, one with the trees. People want to think Avatar's so far fetched, but it really isn't. It really isn't. When you think about it in the long run, that's exactly the way. That's just the story of Pocahontas. I don't know if anybody noticed, but it's the same thing. We just connecting with the energy in the universe that's there. I mean, there's free energy. You can go out and barefoot pick up free energy off the earth. You can go out and hug a tree and pick up 3 times the amount of energy that you do. Just and I mean, you tell people that they hug trees, it would cure their depression. They'd just be like, oh, okay, I roll. But it works. Being out there, and plus spending all that time in nature, you get to see some really cool things. We're creatures of manifestation, so who knows? Do we manifest these things? Do we, do I like? And that's another thing. I think these things reveal themselves to me because I manifest that energy. Like, I want to see something else.
When you say gifting, I'm gonna ask you this. They give you gifts, you give them gifts. What have they given you?
Bones. Like I said, they've left bones at my little gifting spot because they know I collect bones. I don't know. They know what we do. And of course, I've found glyphs here and there, which I didn't know what those were at first. I thought we were just, sigils like back and forth. But like, I lost my water bottle in the woods one day. They brought that back to me. I would have never found that had they not done that. I've never known where I'd set it down at. There was no way that I could have backtracked my own steps because I diddly daddly. I don't just walk down the path. No, I do not. I cannot do that. I have to diddly daddly. So I was just like, well, my water bottle's gone forever. Nope, they brought it back.
Nope.
Put it in our gifting spot. So that was, I'm just trying to think. Uh, Besides just the regular, like they've put some really cool rocks at our gifting spot. Like when you clink them together, they make a weird sound. You know, they're not like normal rocks. You know, so they've left rocks there that would like that we mess with, but nothing crazy. Like I don't know. I found a lot of stuff. Like there's a place in the woods when it rains, like that I found a lot of cool stuff. That's another reason why I think there's portals there. But there's this place that I found in the woods, and it, we have a lot of washouts and stuff too. But a lot of stuff doesn't wash uphill and then back downhill because I found it on top of the hill. But I found like
Wow.
I found a bird tip arrowhead, but I found an old marble with it, like a handmade marble, because the marble wasn't directly even,
Yeah.
so you could tell it was handmade. And the bottom of a 1978 Pepsi bottle, because you could tell the years with those. You can look up the make and mark on the bottom of the bottle, and it tells you the exact year, which was really cool. So I found them all in a little spot that was in the middle of the woods together. They were just on top of the ground, and it's kind of like a washout spot, but it wasn't really like, it wasn't at the bottom of a ravine or anything. It was just like in a little trail where the water had washed out, and it was all just sitting there together. So I don't know if that was from them or where that came from, but it was really cool, the three of those things sitting there together.
What's the odds of those three things sitting there together?
Yeah, and the years were so different. Like, I was thinking old marble, and then I was thinking, oh, in the 1970s, and then I got a bird-tipped arrow, and I was like, yep, right here in the same spot. And it was just, all I could think of was just like land of the lost and little things just falling through, all different years just sitting there. So, yeah.
What do you think? And let's just look back at the timeline. They watch you grow up. They watch the world change. They watch people change. They see people going from horse and buggy to the first vehicles to, now electric cars. The population grow, the house boom, the technology. What do you think with your experience that if they could tell the world, or how do you think they feel about it? Because it's got to be amazing to them.
Yeah, I think I think I think that they would think that the travel part of it was funny, because I think that they was like, well, if you guys had just sticked in the woods with us, you could probably travel the way we do. But that's cool too. Cars are cool too, I guess. I think they would kind of laugh at the way we travel around, but I think that they think that we're neat the way that we have expanded ourselves. I don't think that they would enjoy the way we treat each other exactly back and forth. That part.
That was going to be my next question.
Because they know, and there's a lot of people out there too that like, they have like, I feel like they exploit certain stuff, like, and that's another thing. You got to be careful not to just, you're not out here just to exploit things for a certain reason. Like, I don't tell my stories for money, like to exploit them. That's not what this is. Like, I could have told my story. Of course I did. I told my story years ago to certain people. I won't even mention their names. And they just basically acted like you were crazy back in the day. They didn't follow up on any of the things that they cared about. They wanted to find Sasquatch, but did they really? Because a lot of us knew where he was, and we weren't having no problems finding him, but they were basically calling us crazy. There's no reports in your area. Well, I'm reporting it now. Like, what do you mean? Like, and they wouldn't even bat an eye at you. You know what I mean? And it made you feel some kind of way. And so there's like years and years that went by before I really started telling anybody again. And the only reason why I am now is because we're in the age of Aquarius. We're in the age of truth. We're in the age of wisdom. Like, we have to get to a certain level, like, of, I wouldn't say like, what do you call it? Enlightenment? Yeah.
You need to change the energy of the world.
Yeah. We're in that where it's no better time than now. We're having to level up, and that's part of it. A lot of people can believe, a book that was written thousands of years ago, and they don't even know what it really means, but they can't believe just an idea that there could be things in the woods. It's crazy to me. Like, you just, go as far as like, just wanting people to just expand their minds and be able to level up and be able to, reach enlightenment. And part of that helps, I think, with it, How are you going to know about the energy in the woods if nobody's there to teach us? And I think they can teach us things.
I think you're right on it, Sonya. We're going on over an hour. What I've started doing on my videos, really, you don't have to do it now. If you do, that's fine. I started letting people take a few minutes of the time. You can do a tribute to someone you care about, or you can just talk to people listening to the show, and just I'm gonna give you the screen, and you just take your time and say whatever you want to say, and then we'll end the show. But don't leave the show till it downloads.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you. Are you ready for it?
Yeah. All right. All right. So if you ever have a story you want to tell and you're scared, know that there are safe spaces out there. There are people to talk to. There are reasons why you're having those experiences, and there's reasons, they're messages. There are like-minded people out there, and you have to find those people, and you will find those people. I'm one of those people. You will find your tribe out there to tell your stories to and not be judged. And I definitely encourage you doing that. If you ever have a story that you want to get out, or that you kept down inside, but because you were too scared to let anybody know, just because of the ridicule or this, what people are going to think. People are going to think things no matter what. So you might as well tell your story and get that out, so you don't have to live being fake. I guess that's about it.